Before attending the opening ceremony of the PyeongChang Winter Games, President Moon Jae-in will meet with several high-ranking foreign guests, as our Kanyang also covered. Hwang Hojun fills us in on the Liberal leader's Olympic diplomacy schedule.
It was an extremely busy day for the South Korean president on Friday as he held separate one-on-ones with world leaders. President Moon met with his Japanese counterpart Prime Minister Shinzo Abe on Friday afternoon. With that, he had met with all the delegates and heads of state from the four key powers in the region, minus Russia, since he'd met with U.S. Vice President Mike Pence and Chinese Special Envoy Zheng just the day before. During the meeting, the two leaders also exchanged their views on a hot potato, the controversial agreement to settle Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. That agreement, made under former President Park Geun-hye, was meant to settle the issue finally and irreversibly in exchange for around $9 million. Abe said the agreement was made between two nations and that the Korean government must adhere to it in line with international principles, even though South Korea's leadership has changed. President Moon in return asserted that the agreement cannot be accepted by either the victims themselves or the Korean people. He had said late last year that the agreement was fundamentally flawed. With opinions differing on the issue, President Moon still expressed his gratitude for Abe's visit to South Korea and called for joint efforts by both Seoul and Tokyo for the two countries to become, quote, true friends.
그간 수차례 분명히 밝혔듯이 역사를 직시하면서도 또 총리님과 함께 지혜와 힘을 합쳐서 양국 간 미래지향적 협력을 추진해 나가고자 하며 이를 위해 셔틀 외교를 복원하고 활성화하는 등 정상 차원의 긴밀한 소통과 협력을 강화해 나가고자 합니다.
Shortly afterwards, the South Korean president met with Dutch Prime Minister Mark Rutte. The two leaders exchanged views on how to boost their bilateral relations. Earlier in the day, President Moon held a luncheon meeting with UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres. President Moon said the atmosphere in terms of inter-Korean relations has changed dramatically since his visit to New York for the UN General Assembly and expressed his gratitude for UN's efforts to ease the tension on the peninsula. The UN Secretary-General in return said that while the Olympic Games are important, the real reason he visited South Korea was to express his solidarity with the South Korean people, who have achieved the most outstanding success since the Second World War. The Blue House also confirmed that the two leaders agreed that efforts should be made to ensure that the momentum for dialogue built up during the PyeongChang Olympics needs to lead to dialogue between Washington and Pyongyang to ultimately resolve the North Korea nuclear issue. Hwang Hojun, Arirang News.